is starvation mode a real thing? Is that something that actually it was preventing you from losing weight in the past? Well, that's what we're going to cover in this video. And before we go there, click the subscribe button below, because on this channel, you're going to learn how to become one of those less than 1% of entrepreneurs who are successful and have a healthy, strong, awesome looking, high performing body to go along with your business success. What's up, everybody? This is Coach Amir from 7figurebody.com, and in this video we're going to talk about starvation mode. So many times I hear questions that from clients that, if I have this or that, is starvation mode actually going to kick in and I'm going to stop losing weight? And of course, probably in some groups or friends or wherever, you've probably heard a million times that somebody said, the reason I'm not losing weight is because I'm in the starvation mode. I need to avoid it. So basically, what is the idea of starvation mode? It's that you are in a calorie deficit, so you're eating below your maintenance level intake, yet you're not losing weight because your body's somehow like holding on to those, fat stores or whatever it is, and preventing you from losing weight despite you being in a calorie deficit. So without further ado, no, starvation mode is not real. It's an absolute myth. It simply comes, just like most things of this nature, comes from misunderstanding of what's actually going on in your body when you are in a calorie deficit. The body and brain certainly respond to you being in a calorie deficit. Of course they do. If we didn't have any, normal response from the body and brain, we would simply starve to death the first time there was, scarcity of food in the, wherever, millions of years that we've been around. There's no food around. If we just said, well, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to keep burning all the calories that I'm used to, we would just starve and die and we wouldn't exist as a species anymore. So this is just a defense mechanism that we evolved into over millions of years to respond and survive through periods of famine when there's no food. So this is completely normal, and thankfully we know exactly how and what happens when we are basically in a calorie deficit, and that's really misunderstanding of that is where starvation mode idea came from. So the best example for this that we have when it comes to at least scientific research is the famous Minnesota starvation experiment. So in short, they took 36 men and gave them basically 50% of their maintenance calories. So basically, whatever they're supposed to eat, I think like 3,500 calories, they cut that in half, so 50% of their calories gone. So this is below starvation level intake, because remember, when you're choosing your calorie deficit, it should be somewhere between 10% if somebody's very lean to about 30% or a bit more if somebody's very overweight. So 10 to 30%. Now these people put subjects in this study to 50% deficit, which is absolutely nobody should ever have a 50% deficit, okay? And they did it for 6 months straight. Again, nobody should diet for 6 months straight. You should be taking diet breaks and all the other things. And probably most people can't even stick to a diet for, any couple of weeks, not to say for 6 months. But they put these people to 50% deficit for 6 months. Guess what happened? Did starvation mode kick in? Because talk about starvation, like this is literally below starvation level food intake. So guess what happened? Did starvation mode kick in? So half of them stayed fat, half of them, maintained normal weight? No, that's not what happened. They basically all went down to like 4 to 5% body fat. So basically they look like skeletons. And somewhere here we can show a picture of how they looked after, this, experiment was kind of ending. So this right here shows you that when you starve yourself, meaning you eat that little calories, no starvation mode, that prevents from further losing weight, does not kick in. It's a complete myth. And of course, what actually happened here, 40% of their metabolic rate was lost. So basically their metabolic rate, whatever it was, went down 40%. So everybody's gonna go, you see, starvation mode. No, it's not starvation mode. It's simply mainly the fact that they lost 25% of their total weight. That's why the reductions of metabolic rate happened. And of course, these people were not resistance training during these 6 months. Of course, back in the day, nobody taught about resistance training. And of course, they lost a ton of muscle. If they actually were doing this, but resistance trained, they would probably keep at least a little bit of the muscle that are this way lost, and therefore their metabolic rate would not have dropped as much. But it did, because they didn't, do any kind of resistance training or exercise, and therefore they lost a ton of muscle, lost a ton of fat as well. As you can see, they basically got down to like the lowest possible level of body fat a man can get to, like 4 to 5%. And therefore, starvation mode certainly didn't kick in because it doesn't exist. It's a myth, okay? Now, the one thing that is interesting here to note that Of the 40% of the metabolic rate decrease that happened, majority of it came from simply the fact that they actually weighed 25% less. They lost 25% of their body weight. But the second part, about 15% of that decrease, happened because their NEAT went down. Now, this is one of the 4 components of metabolism, and I go really deep into all 4 in this video right here, showing you how to lose weight, because this is what is your calorie expenditure consists of. These are the 4 components of metabolism, or if you will, 4 components of calorie expenditure. So one of them is called NEAT. NEAT basically means all the activity that we spontaneously do that is not official exercise. So for example, me doing this while I talk in this video, doing this with your leg, if you are maybe OCD or ADHD, which we all entrepreneurs are, right? Moving around, and all of these things that are not official exercise, like cleaning the house, food shopping, if you park a little further with your car in the parking lot and walk back a bit longer, this is all part of NEAT. All of this naturally, normally, subconsciously, without you being aware of it, decreases when you are in a calorie deficit. Now, of course, the bigger the deficit, the more you cut your calories and longer you've been dieting, the bigger the drop in NEAT gets. Please remember this. This is one of the huge reasons why people start losing less and less and less weight while, during their diet. And deep into the diet, a lot of times this NEAT normally goes down a lot. But of course, there are, good and bad news about NEAT. Bad news is that it's genetically predetermined. So normal level of activity that you have is just in genes. Somebody simply moves more, somebody doesn't. Okay, so that's the quote unquote bad part. The good part is a part of this NEAT is also steps that you do per day, which we measure with Fitbits, Apple Watches, any type of tracker that tracks your steps. It doesn't matter what it is, they'll do the same thing. And this is something that we certainly can control. That's the good news. So if you keep your steps anywhere between 6 and 10,000 steps per day, this is what I do for my clients. Every single client that I have, I suggest that we get to 8 to 10,000 steps per day habitually. Not only that this is going to actually burn some calories, because remember, roughly a mile walked is about 2,000 steps, that's 100 calories burned. So if you do 10,000 steps a day, which is 5 miles of walking, that's roughly 500, maybe 400 to 500 calories burned. This is great. This is absolutely going to contribute to our overall calorie expenditure in a significant way, because 500 calories a day is very significant. That's a pound of fat lost every week right there, just from doing that. If all other things are being equal, and you just add 10,000 steps, let's say you used to be doing 1,000 steps a day and now you do 11,000 steps, so that difference of 10,000 steps is 500 calories. You're gonna be losing a pound of fat every week just by doing that. So steps certainly do contribute to the overall expenditure of calories, and therefore is one of the things that you should really, really focus on. Another part of that is overall activity being higher is probably the biggest factor in overall health and longevity. So studies have shown that people who do 8 to 10,000 steps a day habitually, they live on an average a decade longer than people who do less than 5,000 steps a day. Now, of course, please remember there are a lot of other things that play a role here, a lot of other factors that people who are generally more active tend to be a bit more health conscious, so they probably eat a little bit better, have lower body fat percentage, blah, blah, blah. A lot of these things do play a role, but certainly if you start doing 8 to 10,000 steps a day, every day as a habit, without really thinking about it, without really, I really have to go for a walk. Initially, it's certainly going to take energy and time and effort and planning, but eventually it becomes normal. So for me, I will probably do nothing and not even give it a thought for 1 second, and at the end of the day, I will have over 10,000 steps. Why? Simply because I have focused on it for so long that now it's become a norm. If sometimes, let's say it's very cold outside and you can't go out and basically it's really hard to walk, I'll probably have 7,000 to 8,000 steps, which in my mind is probably going to be very low. So it's just a habit that you build that's going to probably do better for your overall health and longevity than pretty much anything else, short of maybe getting lean, right? Obviously being very overweight is unhealthy, and getting leaner is going to be the biggest boost in your health and overall longevity that you can do. Probably the second thing right there is going to be being overall more active, because we know that they say these days sitting is the new smoking. So basically it's so bad and unhealthy to be sedentary that it's actually worse than smoking. So it's better to be active and smoke than it is to not smoke and actually be sedentary. That's how bad being sedentary is. And this steps that we do per day is a really, really kind of close proxy for how active or sedentary somebody is. So an average American, it's really hard to say what, but they probably do only a few thousand steps, maybe 2,000, 3,000 steps, who knows? But if you measure your steps and see that it's that low, the number one first thing you can do is increase that. Of course, and also remember, starvation mode is an absolute myth. Yes, your metabolic rate, normally all 4 components of this metabolic rate reduce and when you go into a calorie deficit, but they never reduce so much that they completely eliminate the deficit. If that was possible, then we would just basically could starve ourselves forever and not die, which we know is not true. Starvation, to death, meaning like, you don't have enough calories and you certainly go that low in your body fat percentage that you eventually die. Absolutely possible, we know that's true. But being in a starvation mode where you're not, you're eating in a calorie deficit, you're not, being at maintenance, you're below and not losing weight, absolutely impossible, it's a myth. So I hope you liked this video and found it useful. If you did, please click the like button below and also hit that notification bell. So every time we come up with new videos, you can get science-based and real-world proven information from a real coach who actually works with real humans and real entrepreneurs to get them ripped. And one final thing, if you haven't subscribed already, click that subscribe button so you can become the 7-figure body entrepreneur and actually have a 7-figure body that goes along with your business success. Thanks guys for watching. See you next time.